All right, made it to Friday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin some news from the White House, where President Trump is dispatching Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, along with Jared Kushner, back to Islamabad, Pakistan, for another round of peace talks with Iran. The administration's hopeful progress will be made if they're even talking to the right guy this time. Also, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said he would have the names of Congress members who used taxpayer dollars from the sexual harassment slush fund this week. Well, it's Friday. We don't have those names. We're not letting it die, and we're going to try to get them on next week to ask them about it. And the Trump administration is reportedly exploring the use of the Defense Production Act as a strategy to save Spirit Airlines. The president willing to do so to save jobs. No word yet if Spirit will then change their name to MAGA Air. But first, maybe if no one wants to employ you, it's because you're unemployable, as the fired USAID bureaucrats are learning the hard way. Let's do this. You know how the government is always hailed for its inefficiency, notoriously short workdays, and its ranks are notable for the reputation of being full of incompetent people? Yeah, well, the New York Times, I think unbeknownst to their editors, just made that point for the entire world to see by interviewing a bunch of former USAID workers who are unable to get a job in the private sector post the agency's shutdown, and makes the point to why we, the taxpayers, wanted it shut down in the first place. This is great. The headline reading: a year after USAID's death, fired workers find few jobs and much loss. People have plowed through savings, cashed out retirement funds, and moved in with relatives. Former USAID workers estimate that less than half have found full-time work. I can't help but laugh at this. Not because I'm cheering for their misfortune. Look, I've been there. We've all lost a job. When you have to support a family, it's stressful. But it perfectly illustrates why government employees are unemployable outside the bureaucracy. And this is not a mystery to anyone who works in the private sector, but for any USAID employee who might be watching, would you like to know why you can't find a job? Here, let's go through some of the projects USAID embarked on. Chemonomics. This was supposed to help countries, mainly in Africa, manage their own medical supply lines. It was a $9.5 billion program that USAID oversaw. Guess how much of that actually made it to the intended recipients? In one recorded quarter, here, look, 7%. 7% made it to the intended recipients. Why? Well, look, it's also in there. Failings, mismanagement, inefficiencies, and fraud. Now, when you go to apply for a job, you give someone your resume, and you have like your previous work history on there with some bullet points, and then the person interviewing you asks you about it. Well, tell me about this program that you ran and how successful it was. I mean, like, you think I should hire you to manage anything after you put on your resume that you were in charge or managing a program that all but 7% evaporated due to bad management? I mean, no. Let's do another one. Water wells in Chad. We've covered stuff like this before. USAID, they built 113 water wells in Chad. That was their primary mission under this program. Sounds great. Clean drinking water. For $69 million. $610,000 a well? Because they didn't care about budgets. After all, government money isn't theirs. You know how much it actually cost an actual privately funded nonprofit to build the same exact well? Here, $9,000. 1/60th the cost. Oh, I don't know why we can't get hired anywhere. You should not only not be hired for wasting $69 million on wells, but you should definitely not be hired for not knowing why no one in the private sector will hire you. Golly, they don't even realize it. And now they're playing victim with this New York Times piece. Many said they were still dealing with mental trauma and loss of confidence in their professional abilities after brutal job. What professional abilities do you have? None. You have none. That's why Pottery Barn won't even hire you. You people have no concept of budget or oversight or accountability at all. And they think because they used to get huge paychecks under the whatever BS job they had, that they're now somehow entitled to that same paycheck in the private sector for not delivering. We're supposed to feel bad for these people that they're not getting that paycheck anymore? I don't. Here from the article. Had worked for the U.S. Agency for International Development or related groups for more than 2 decades. She made $175,000 a year. Wow, that's a damning indictment on the caliber of government. Why? Like, what did we get? Did we get $175,000 worth of value out of her? Doubt it. You know what the median income is in America? $64,000. So you at USAID, who couldn't do anything on time or on budget, made almost 3 times what the average American makes? 175 grand. You can't figure out why no one will hire you. Clearly, you're not worth the 175 grand. You can't figure that one out. You see, in the private sector, look, I've been in the private sector for a long time. To be paid a salary, you have to probably create at least 2x your salary in value for that company, or the company just goes bankrupt. That's just how it works. It's math. I know the government doesn't do math, but people like that woman have no concept of ROI because her agency threw away $9.5 billion. And until Trump came in, no one was ever fired or even disciplined for it. It was nothing. Some of the people were even on the take themselves, like this guy. I don't want anyone like that anywhere near any of the companies I'm involved with. But the New York Times article, if you can believe it, got even crazier. It went on. She and her husband have applied to more than 100 jobs with no luck. Most of their friends don't have jobs either. That's a you problem. That's not the market's problem. If you get rejected from 100 jobs, it's because you got something wrong. The best part is, this is one of USAID's husbands, okay, who also lost his job when USAID funding for his nonprofit dried up. I wonder how he got that for his nonprofit. Did his wife allocate it for him? Their entire family ecosystem relied on the government. This is a risky business. And they're complaining? They should be thanking the taxpayers. Like people like, I don't know, Donald Trump, who's paid millions in taxes. Elon Musk, who's paid billions in taxes. Because those taxes actually paid their salaries for as long as they did. No, I don't get my retirement. Nobody gets retirement pensions anymore. Why should government? But I would pose the question to the half of the USAID people that are still out there that can't get jobs. Seriously consider, like, okay, why should I hire you? Folks, look, I've been in government, okay? I was a Trump appointee. I was a senior appointee for actually the same agency that worked hand in hand with USAID, where I cut millions in grants during the first, month of my tenure there. Day one, though, I asked over 100 staff in the D.C. office that worked immediately for me to write on a single note card what their job description was, what they do every day, and one deliverable the last week. And you know how many I got back? None. Not one could give me an adequate response. I was their boss. This is what the New York Times doesn't understand. In the private sector, again, you have to create value for the company by accomplishing measurable deliverables. In D.C., action constitutes achievement. You just move stuff around and you look busy and people give you credit for, oh, how great they are. But in the rest of the real world that actually creates products and wealth and things like that, only actual achievement constitutes achievement. And $610,000 a well is not achievement when I can do it for $9,000 myself. And some of you may think I'm harsh, but let me tell you why these people that were fired and why I don't really care, because they were liberal bureaucrats who hate everything I stand for, donated almost exclusively, as you can see there, 97% to Democrats that vote to take away my rights that are very precious to me. I'm losing approximately, give or take, 0 sleep over them no longer having a government salary, because what goes around comes around. And you know why? Because when I said something on a podcast 8 years before I even got into the Trump administration, these same media people and people within the government that worked for me, they dug it up, they selectively clipped it, and they pushed it everywhere and chased me down to a point where I had to resign over it. Now, if I said the same thing today, nobody would care. But this was at the beginning of the first Trump administration. And instead of publishing sympathy pieces on me like the New York Times just did, you know what they did? They kept publishing hit pieces on me. They chased me to my next 2 jobs, even calling my employer, trying to get me fired over a year later. Same crew. Some of them are at the New York Times. The articles are there. You can look it up. So I don't really care how hard your life is now. You know what I did? I didn't whine about it to the New York Times. I got my ass in gear, and I got a job in construction management to support my family for 3 years, Monday through Friday, working 12 hours a day and sometimes nights, while I hosted the weekend news program here. So I worked 7 days a week so I could dig out of the stigma that those same libs tried to stick me with. And here I am. Oh, by the way, with no college degree. Most of these USAID people have master's degrees in basket weaving. That's why I don't care about these people's hardships, so you can deal with it. Welcome to the real world where you actually have to earn your salary. Founder of Quantum Leap Advanced Methodology, Dan Pena, a.k.a. the $1 trillion man. Dan, would you hire anybody that had lost $9.5 billion?
No, and I absolutely agree with you. And one of the best examples that your staff sent me was one of those middle six-figure individuals who was now working for $19 an hour. And she was probably overpaid for that. But that's been my experience, as you pointed out quite accurately, that the government pays for nothing quite often. And now they cry about it. And it's not unusual for the newspapers and the liberal media and news to take it up and take the baton and run with it, just as they ran after you for a number of years ago. But I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Let's look at some of those salaries you brought up. Average salary at USAID, $112,000 a year, which is, by the way, double the average salary in America. Higher employees were paid $220,000 a year. But hey, let's look at some of the Trump's White House actually doing something. White House Chief of Staff made less than that. Susie Wiles, $195. Dan Scavino, Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, $195. You have Stephen Miller, $195. The press secretary who has to go fight the media every day, $195,000. I mean, yeah, I'm sure USAID deserved $220,000 salaries.
And some of the examples that you sent me, they had $300,000 and $350,000 salaries, which the president only gets $400,000, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I'm sure they didn't do anything. But you pointed it out. There's no accountability. No. And nobody, it's almost impossible to get fired. Yeah.
But what was even better is I read that example of the woman who was married to a guy who worked for a nonprofit that got funding from her office. Like, no conflict of interest there. Look at some of these salaries from the private organization. So the government got money from the taxpayers, and then they doled it out to NGOs that is totally unaccountable. Some of those NGOs, those non-government organization nonprofits, RTI International, their president made $1.3 million. By the way, they get millions from the government. Catholic Relief Services, $700,000, $900,000, $700,000, and the one in this article, $272,000.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the government, if I read correctly, the Secretary of State was going to eliminate $8 billion of overspending. And of course, as soon as they started cutting jobs like these jobs that you're alluding to, everybody cried, and cried for jobs. Mm-hmm. But nobody cried that they were wasting $8 billion.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. But the problem is, the other thing too, Dan, is a lot of these people have, they got their undergrads while they were working for the government on the government dole with reduced tuition because of that. They got their master's degrees, and they're getting master's degree in things that don't matter. And they're getting out and they're like, I can't get a job. It's like, well, you shouldn't have gotten a degree in lesbian dance theory.
Exactly. Well, the college education today, Warren Buffett says it best. There's plenty of jobs in Berkshire Hathaway that you can make $80,000 to $90,000 a year with no college degree. Yeah. And under the apprenticeship systems, and now when you get out, especially the Harvard type schools that I didn't go to, I mean, you get a check, a signing bonus, and you could start at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. When they should spread that money around to people that really need it, because we have a lot of poor people in the United States, not just the United States. But we've misdirected for decades what we spend the government money on.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Dan Pena, the $1 trillion man. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much. Nice seeing you again.
All right, good talk. Coming up, new U.S. cancer data just dropped, and the numbers are raising eyebrows. So what's behind the trend? We're going to break down those numbers in just a bit. But first, a video Senator Cornyn's team hoped you'd probably never see again. Well, we brought it back. Texas Republicans deserve the truth, though, before the May 26 primary. Wait till you hear this video next.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
No way this all fits.
Watch me.
Oh, we're watching, Gary. They're right. We need WeatherTech.
I thought they only make floor liners and cargo liners.
Really, Gary? Really, Gary? Who do you think made the seat protector, side window deflectors, no drill mud flaps?
And the cup foam.
And I just ordered WeatherTech's newest products. Ta-da!
Hitch Basket makes for easy loading of heavy and bulky gear and increased storage capacity with a roof basket up top. Buy American at WT.com.
WeatherTech for the win.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands. We'll help you put off the high cost of a roof replacement for at least 5 years.
Or 10.
Or sometimes even 15.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it.
We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. But don't wait. If your roof loses too much protective coating, it's too late. Call now or scan the code and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Don't I know the internet is forever, folks? This is exactly why voters are so fed up. This is a forgotten YouTube video making the rounds thanks to Scott Presler of Senator John Cornyn advocating for amnesty for illegals and what? Oh, it's in Spanish. Except he forgot one simple thing, that Republican Texans didn't send him to Washington to represent illegal aliens. They sent him there to represent Americans. And now with this runoff with Ken Paxton just over a month away, Cornyn may have handed his opponent a ready-made campaign ad. Republican strategist Cliff Maloney and Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield. Ashley, this is actually a gift to the Paxton campaign.
Yeah, it actually is, I think, in a lot of ways. And I have no dog in this fight. I'm just a reporter in D.C. But I think what I've seen over the last few, weeks in Congress is that amnesty amongst the base is not popular. I think we all can see that, especially with the campaign promises made by President Trump in 2024. And what else have we seen? The Dignity Act, I can't even say it in Spanish, Dignity Act. And basically also the idea that they're going to give extensions for Haitian TPS migrants, basically. So that's where we're at. I don't think Texas is going to agree with this. The NRSC has been pumping money into that campaign, I think closing in on $80 million. So I can't imagine Texans are too happy about this.
No, not. And Cliff, like if that didn't already annoy everybody at home, get a load of this. This week, in the dead of night, the Senate, where Cornyn is a member of, voted to allow billions of our taxpayer money to go to trans treatments and hormones and puberty blockers for minors in this new bill, this reconciliation bill they passed. But they rejected attaching the SAVE Act to the same thing because Senator Josh Hawley is now pushing the House to act. He said in a letter that the House must take action to protect America's children. As we work to pass a budget resolution for the new reconciliation bill, it must include a ban on any federal funding for these trans treatment and abortion providers. I urge you to act without. That was your job in the Senate, Hawley. I like him, but come on.
Look, Carl, the swamp will do what the swamp does to protect the swamp. I mean, it's continuous, whether it's transing our kids, whether it's passing the Save America Act, even if practically 100% of people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, think you should have to be a U.S. citizen and show your ID to vote, they're just not getting the message. And I'm so tired of the excuses from the Republican establishment. Put these things to a vote. Hold the Republicans accountable. But Carl, until the entire environment changes and the American people say, listen, we've had enough, these politicians are going to continue to do what they do. That's to protect the special interests. And we need to send them a message. We've got to unelect some of these bureaucrats.
Yeah, well, but also, like, we're just going to hand everything over to the Democrats, and then they're going to turn everything socialist, and we're going to have to shoot our way out of it. So it's like, that's the reality of socialism. Every time you get into it, you got to shoot your way out of it. Here's another one, Ashley. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, thank God for her. She's calling for President Trump to pardon the U.S. Army soldier who was on the raid for Maduro because he made $400,000 after betting on the raid for Maduro, posting on X, unless the DOJ plans on going after all the crooks in Congress currently insider trading, this is simply just skewed justice. Because look, here's the numbers. These guys are turning 70, 80, 67% returns on their stock portfolios. I mean, in the best hedge fund in the world, 10, 15% makes you a rock star.
Right. Well, ETFs are formed off of members of Congress. We all know this. And this guy, you know, the bet was he got paid at $400,000 and he's being prosecuted by the DOJ now. And I think what Anna Paulina Luna said herself is that, you know, this guy, obviously it's not right. What he did was wrong. There was risk involved of, you know, Venezuelans being able to track the betting and the teams being at risk here. But that's another element that you don't see with members of Congress. But I see the flip side of that. You know, we also see, you know, members of Congress making millions of dollars, having better returns than some of the best traders in the world. So I think there needs to be a hard look at this, obviously. And I saw a lot of individuals on places like X popping off, not satisfied with this.
Yeah, Senator Mike Lee, though, saying the quiet part out loud in the Senate, just get rid of the filibuster, roll it.
But if we're not willing to use the talking filibuster, it's time to nuke it. Why? Look, this zombie filibuster thing that we're using, which is sort of the opposite of what the filibuster is supposed to do and supposed to be, not only is there obstruction with it, unprecedented of late, and causing all sorts of problems, but it's inuring disproportionately to the benefit of the Democrats. Not something we want to be doing in these rare and often fleeting moments when we've got Republican control of the Senate, of the House, and of the White House.
Last 20 seconds to you, Cliff.
Yeah, look, it's all a circus, Carl. I mean, Senator Mike Lee is one of the only people willing to speak the truth, but you have so many of these fake senators that will do whatever it takes to protect themselves. Thank you for Mike Lee. We need more like him. We need more people willing to speak, and Republicans got to grow a spine. That's it.
Couldn't agree more. Cliff, Ashley, pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, cancer rates climbing again, and the timing has experts so concerned. We don't know what happened. Well, we'll tell you what changed next.
Morning, gentlemen. Nice day by my day.
James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, Hollywood's original bad guys. Rugged, ruthless, legendary. They didn't just play tough, they defined it. Watch Tough Guys, the men who made Hollywood.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Allegiance Flag Supply believes American flags should be made in America.
Our symbol of freedom made outside our borders, that did not sit right.
Join us in our mission to keep the American flag truly American. Don't settle for flags made elsewhere.
Every flag is proudly crafted in the USA with superior materials.
Visit showallegiance.com to order your high-quality, made-in-America flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
It's April, time for digital spring cleaning.
I shall purge the clutter!
Whoa, use PCmatic. Our whitelist technology automatically cleans out malware and junk files without...
Delete the cookies. Delete!
Without breaking the computer. Get PCmatic. We clean the smart way. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies.
Visit PCmatic.com today.
Stop. Check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
So Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Dad, it's been forever. I need to be in there.
Wrap it up.
Come on, Dad. It's taking forever.
How much longer?
It's been an hour. Are you done yet?
Dale, don't worry. We can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Okay, let's do it.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield from the company trusted in blood tests for cancer for over a decade.
All right, so the NIH National Cancer Institute just dropped its new data, and the numbers are actually quite terrifying. Between 2021 and 2023, cancer incidence rates increased more than 6% for the average American under the age of 50. That is millions of people. Look at this stuff. This is so crazy to me. Cancers among people under 50 rising quite some time. Look at the jump between 2021 right here, okay, and 2023. This is significant. Coincidentally, this lines up with the large-scale rollout of the COVID vaccines. It goes from 109 cancer incidents per 100,000 in 2021 to 116 per 100,000 in 2023. These are huge numbers. Look at how flat this is for all of time. And then it, bam! These are specific cancers jumping over the same time period. You have colorectal cancers up 19%. Okay, you got brain tumors up 19%. Ovarian cancer up nearly 13%. This doesn't include small intestine cancers up over 15%. You have stomach cancers up over 7%. Female breast cancer up over 3.6%. But according to Joe Biden, COVID vaccines were used to beat cancer. Remember this?
The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does.
But we were called crazy a few years ago when we were so much as concerned about the lack of long-term testing and the potential impact of these vaccines. Just for asking a question, we were condemned to the corner. We were told just to follow the science while they tried to force it into our arm. And then all we wanted was the truth. Epidemiologist, administrator at the McCullough Foundation, Nic Hulscher. Nic, I have seen you far and wide screaming from the hills about this. I just rejected the vaccine straight out, but a lot of my friends got this thing, and a lot of them have problems now.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And this new cancer data confirms our fears of the past 5 years that the mRNA injections are most definitively contributing to increased cancer incidence. This was official government data by the National Cancer Institute. It's called the SEER data, Surveillance, Epidemiology, and End Results Program. And so now we have the 2023 data that we were waiting for years. Now that it's in, we see from 2021 to 2023, the cancer incidence rates, new cancer cases skyrocketed up 6.4%. Colorectal cancers up 19%, and those under 50. Brain tumors up 19%. Small intestine cancer. All these cancers are up, very concerning.
But this is the problem, too, is like, one of the things is like, I was not opposed to the vaccine early on when they were like, hey, we got this. I was like, hey, so I go in and ask my doctor, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, tell me a little bit about this. They're like, nope, don't ask any questions, just take it. And I was like, hold up, get that thing the hell away from me. You can't even tell me why I'm supposed to take it, what the long term. That was the problem. They have done so much institutional damage that to the point where if there is a legitimate vaccine ever again, I probably still won't take that either.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. And we have to remember this cancer data that just was released corroborates 3 independent analyses. In fact, 2 massive population studies just came out, one in Italy, one in South Korea, over 8.7 million people combined. They compared vaccinated to unvaccinated. The COVID-vaccinated individuals suffered increased risks of 7 major cancers, some of the same cancers we see in this new data.
Now, Nick, to be fair, just to cover the bases here, is there any possibility that it's not linked or partially linked or even unaffiliated with the COVID vaccines? I just want to cover our bases here. Is it possible or is it just totally unlikely?
Some of it's due to delayed screening in 2020. Nobody was getting screened, but
Because
that
of
doesn't
COVID.
account for all of it. We have all of the mechanistic studies now. Over 100 studies actually indicate these mRNA injections may induce cancer via 17 distinct mechanisms. It's now undeniable.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's crazy, and yet nobody has gone to jail over it. Dr. Nic Hulscher, we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, imagine the audacity to think that you're unequivocally entitled to what others have earned. Oh, yeah, wait, that's the mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani. Culture Clash, next.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
I really hope this will be a case of FAFO. Okay, I work in New York, and I'm kind of rooting for its downfall right now at this point. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani announced his next brilliant idea to bankrupt the city, literally going after the people who help generate the revenue and create the jobs that pay the taxes he needs. Roll this.
Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million.
I wonder how much money he generated for the economy, that same Ken Griffin. I mean, like, Ken Griffin actually was super annoyed that Mamdani used his penthouse as an example, and Griffin's chief operating officer said that the company might not move forward now with a new Midtown construction project, writing, "We were about to commence the redevelopment of 350 Park Avenue, creating 6,000 highly paid construction jobs and supporting the creation of more than 15,000 permanent jobs in Midtown New York." No surprise, Mamdani has already doubled down on using Ken Griffin as an example. I hope he doesn't stop the Look, actually, you know what? Good riddance, man. A new study from the Citizens Budget Commission actually showed that more than 114,000 people left New York City for other cities across all income levels recently. And Mamdani is still claiming the exodus is, it's only imaginary. Host of the Grace Curley Show, Grace Curley, and senior research analyst for Media Research Center, Bill D'Agostino. Grace, it's so simple. It's right in front of their face. And yet they're like, nope, going to do it anyway. I don't know why they left.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I hope Ken Griffin makes good on this and brings all of his business or more of his business to Miami, because we always say this thing as conservatives, when people tell you who they are, believe them. It's also a little bit of when people tell you they hate you, believe them. Yeah. And this has been the running theme with Democrats, is that billionaires, at least the ones who don't think the same way that Mamdani and other Democrats do, or if you're not a self-hating billionaire like Tom Steyer, then you're evil. And what really freaks me out about this, Carl, and you kind of just alluded to it when you said that Ken Griffin was upset he used his apartment in the background, the creepy Succession music, the kind of like haunting way that he filmed this. Given what we know about the current temperature and the way that Democrats see the rich and this idea of things are justified if someone's wealthy and if you feel like it's social justice to harm them, I think doxing in this way, and you can argue, well, people know where Ken Griffin lives, but there's just something that I find really wrong about this, and I don't blame Ken Griffin for being disturbed, and I think he should pack up and leave.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of people leaving places, a new poll actually, Bill, says that the desire to move to the U.S. has dropped to a new low of 15%. Say that America is their top choice to move to now versus 25 or 24% between 2007 and 2009. And I'm like, good, stay away. And, don't come here for our benefits either.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, so is that 15% of just respondents, or is that meant to be representative of the entire planet, right? That's what concerns me about that poll when I saw that. Because if it's 15% of the planet, that's still way too much, right? Like we can't fit everybody in here.
That's like four times the population of the United States.
Right. And as much as the writers for, say, The Economist would love to see the US population quadruple as a result of immigration, I think that most people living here very much would not like to see that.
Nope.
So yeah, that's an encouraging sign. It's absolutely a result of this administration's policies. And so for people saying, there's been a betrayal on immigration from the Trump administration, I don't know where that's coming from. Part of me wonders if that's like Democrat plants seeding that in people's discourse. But look, you don't get that kind of result if you don't have strong border enforcement, not just border enforcement, but also strong clampdowns on ridiculous legal immigration policies as well, right? Like H-1B fraud and whatever. So that's a good sign, and I hope it continues to drive down, frankly.
Yeah, Grace, and this is another one too. We've covered this. The internet is forever, and Democrats always forget that. But the official Democrat account on X reshared a picture of the acting Navy Secretary Hung Kao, friend of this show, and Glenn Youngkin with this emoji in a sad attempt to mock his size of his private parts. Okay, some people even calling it racist, prompting the account to delete the post. Just for reference, though, Youngkin is 6'7". Hung Kao is 5'8", which is the average height in America of a male.
Yeah, I always think it's a bad idea to go after people for how they look or, whatever this is supposed to be. But I especially think it's bad when you're supposedly coming from the party that has the moral high ground and that tells us that you're inclusive and, that you don't body shame. And then yet it's okay to call Trump obese. It's okay to make fun of other people for how they look. It's really despicable. And something that I think this has to do with, Carl, is they're all trying to be Trump on social media. And what they've failed to understand is that while, yes, Trump's base and a lot of the people who are pro-Trump do laugh at some of his social media posts, there's a lot of people that Trump has won over in spite of his social media. And so it's really not the thing that makes Trump who he is. And they're all trying to capture it. And they almost, I would say 90% of the time, whether it's Gavin Newsom or this account or these other accounts, they end up embarrassing themselves and having to walk it back. And it's like, maybe you should focus more on getting things done and not on your interns posting things rapid fire on Twitter.
Exactly. Got to leave it right there. Grace, Bill, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks so much, Carl.
All right, coming up, the rise of AOC. Democrats struggle to find an identity, but the New York Socialist is gaining ground. We're going to break down a new poll in a sec.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America, by Americans, with American materials.
We're proud to create jobs right here in South Carolina. It might not be the easiest way, but it's the right way.
We make American flags the way they should be made, where they should be made.
Join our pledge to keep the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
Americans have lost billions of dollars in their retirement accounts during the dot-com bubble of 2000.
And inflation is only getting worse.
Patriot Gold Group just introduced our America 250 Inflation Protection No Fee for Life IRA.
I'm sure glad Eileen and I rolled over our IRAs into gold in 2019.
On Wall Street, there's a saying, sell in May and go away.
My saying is, call the Patriot Gold Group today.
Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide. The only firm nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the No Fee for Life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots.
Call now. 1-800-778-4156.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beats, and I swear by it.
Super Beats is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beats.
Try Super Beats today at human.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Look, for as many self-imposed problems as Republicans have, Democrats have even more. The once so-called blue-collar party is now the party of these elites and extremists and socialism. According to a new echelon poll on the Democrat Party's perspective, in 2028 presidential field, the failed 2024 candidate Kamala Harris is on top after leaving her party $20 million in debt. Then you have governor of the failing state of California, Gavin Newsom. He's only a point behind her. In fourth place, though, oddly enough, with a healthy 10%, is New York bartender turned socialist AOC. That number could rise significantly, considering 68% of Democrat respondents in this poll said they aligned more with the concept of democratic socialism, whatever that is. Patrick Allocco, founder of Zeus Political Index. All right, so this is crazy to me. A bartender turned socialist, now congresswoman.
Oh, that's what you've got there, Carl. Carl, what you're witnessing here in this poll is the battle of the soul of the Democratic Party. And it's playing out in real time in this poll. It's progressives versus moderate Dems. So for context, 10 years ago, in 2016, when President Trump first took office, if you polled the same questions of socialism versus capitalism, the results were split even.
Yeah.
Today, it's a 10-point difference. And this poll, it's 525 high propensity voters who identify as Dems and independents who are Dem leaners. What are they looking at in that poll? Name ID and news cycle familiarity. That's why Harris is up on top. But it gives us something really interesting, Carl. It's a fighter index. They're looking at how Democrats, how angry they are against Trump and MAGA, and who the best candidate is to fight against MAGA. And you probably saw it in the poll. 83% of the respondents said Kamala Harris. 80% said AOC, 78% said Gavin Newsom. So the left is energized with AOC in the passion lane.
Yep.
And as you alluded to before, this is her floor at 10%. When polling reaches her coalition, she's going up.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. Especially, it's like we stopped teaching history and how bad socialism is and how many people, millions of people it's killed. And yet here we are, 50% of the country marching headfirst into the shallow end here. Unbelievable. Patrick, we appreciate it very much on this poll.
Great to be here.
All right. Well, for more on this, let's bring in editor-in-chief of the Washington Reporter, Matthew Foldi, and contributing editor for the American Spectator, Jeffrey Lord. Okay, Matt, this is your age group that is her primary supporter, okay? I don't understand why, but apparently they don't teach history anymore.
Well, I think that is part of it, Carl, and something that, look, 2028 is far away. A lot can change between now and then. What I think, if you want to look for a proverbial, almost literal canary in the coal mine, look at Michigan. Right now, literally, as we are doing this show where far more people are watching this, the Democrats there are having a Senate debate. I pity anyone who's stuck watching that. But if this communist jihadist Abdul El-Sayed, who's the Bernie Sanders guy, he's the one who had the terrorist lover Hassan Piker in Michigan, if he wins the Democratic primary, now it's just one state, but I think that will be very indicative. Meanwhile, you look at the Republican side, it's like uncontested for Mike Rogers, who has Trump's endorsement. If Democrats win that Senate race with Abdul El-Sayed as their nominee, I think that will energize the people who would be wanting to support AOC. They'd say, look, the appeal goes beyond the communist hellhole of New York City. It goes to normal swing states like Michigan. Now, again, 2028, long way away, but there are a lot of little case studies we can look at between now and then, and I would pay a lot of attention to that. And on the flip side, if he loses, then maybe that'll dim her lightness.
But Jeff, you've been in politics longer than I've been alive. Not to date you or anything, sir. But
thanks.
Of course, obviously. But here's the thing: in the history of political worlds, the party always wanted to kind of keep down their most extreme candidates. No, we can't have them. It's extreme. It's going to push the election to the other party. Now the Democrat Party is literally embracing as much crazy. It used to be like, oh, I smoked pot and didn't inhale. And now it's like, well, I didn't eat children.
Yeah, well, actually, Carl, we have been here before with the Democrats. And I am old enough to remember this. In 1968, the Democrats nominated their very mainstream liberal candidate, which was then Vice President Hubert Humphrey. 4 years later, out of the blue, came South Dakota Senator George McGovern, who'd never been on a national ticket and was far, far left. And his people were so enthused about this breaking from the Democratic establishment that he got nominated. And then he proceeded to get absolutely wiped off the map by President Nixon. But my point is, these people in the Democratic Party in one generation or another have been around for a very long time. This is who they are. AOC perfectly fits the mold of a George McGovern.
Yeah.
She is, not terribly well qualified, but all of a sudden they're going to want her. So there are going to be a lot of people in the Democratic Party, younger folks, that are going to flock to her. So we've sort of seen this movie before.
Yeah, the thing is like when she gets into debate, she's really just not articulate or intelligent. So, Matt, there's like all these confusion among these Democrat candidates. There appears to be very little doubt who will be the GOP nominee 2028. Vice President J.D. Vance, 42% among Republican voters, triple the support of Marco Rubio, who, by the way, some people are like, yeah, Marco Rubio. I still think a lot of old school Trumpers still see him as little Marco, who was very combative with Trump, and we're still not sold on him yet.
At the end of the day, I think that whoever Trump says he wants to succeed him will be in a perhaps near insurmountable position to win that Republican primary. Again, same thing for Republicans. 2028, long way away. I do think that if this year's midterms go particularly badly for Republicans, that might be a problem similarly for J.D. Vance, right? Like if the socialist left takes an L in November, that would be a problem for AOC. And the Trump orbit, they have literally hundreds of millions, almost $500 million worth of money across several organizations. So they should start getting ready to spend that, and I expect that they will. The better Republicans do this November, the better it is for Trump. Obviously, he won't be impeached and executed, but also the better it is for his number two vice president, J.D. Vance, heading into 2028.
Jeff, one of the things Democrats own the field on get out the vote. When are we going to get with that program and actually start spending money in that department?
Yeah, they need to do it. And I'll tell you, I will say this. I think that this exists in patches around the country in the Republican Party. Where I live in suburban Harrisburg, I had my door knocked several times as we ran into the last set of elections with people, pushing Republicans now, pushing literature and all of this. It was even repetitive, I would say. But that is not true all across the country, and that is what has to be true in order to win. At the end of the day, always, it's the ground game.
Yeah. Matt, if you had to choose now or make a prediction now for midterms, like about 30 seconds, do Republicans hold the House?
Basically, we need to see what the Supreme Court does with this Calais case, where they are poised to blow up the Voting Rights Act that's allowed Democrats to basically hack the system. The more that they go to throw that out, the better it is for Republicans. Honestly, the fairer and more well-represented the South of America will be. It'll also be interesting to see what Ron DeSantis does. And if the insane, probably illegal gerrymander in Virginia is allowed to go through, that's a boon for Democrats. I think right now you just look at history and you think that Democrats are going to win the House, but crazier things have happened.
Jeff, real quick to you.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. Anything, here we are at the end of April. We got, relatively speaking, a long way to go to November, and anything can happen between now and then.
You're right. All right, Jeff Lord, Matt Foldi, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, a dozen of scientists have just gone suspiciously missing or dead or something since 2023. Coincidence or something bigger? You're going to find out next. The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Aging isn't something that happens later. It's happening right now. We age because our cells age.
Fatty 15 helps to reverse aging on a cellular level.
And just one daily capsule has over 36 cellular benefits.
Basically acts like an armor for your cells. You should definitely try Fatty 15.
So Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Dad, it's been forever. I need to be in there. Wrap it up. Come on, Dad. It's taking forever.
How much longer?
It's been an hour. Are you done yet?
Dale, don't worry. We can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Okay, let's do it.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield from the company trusted in blood tests for cancer for over a decade.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Another lost spring break? Turns out, the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools are ultra durable for any climate. Can be installed in weeks, not months. And have hundreds of designs, sizes, and colors to choose from. For 70 years, Latham Pool has remained the gold standard in bringing backyard dreams to life. Our pools are easy to care for, won't stain or crack, and never require costly resurfacing. And with flexible financing options, your dream is within reach. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. It's never too early to start planning for a lifetime of memories. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Look, as we pointed out, since late 2022-23, a total of 12 scientists linked to NASA and other federal secret programs have gone missing or turned up dead. I mean, it's weird, right? So Newsmax asked what people thought about the strange situation. Roll this.
What do you think happened to these people?
They got abducted.
Kidnapped?
He wanted to escape? I don't know.
Maybe they knew too much.
Well, maybe it's aliens.
Definitely a lot of hidden secrets within the government and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it just sucks to say, but it always go back to the evils of this world.
I don't know. They found out something they shouldn't know.
Lawmakers are calling for an investigation into this. Do you trust the government to get to the bottom of it?
Not really trusting of the government to do anything right now.
Have you ever seen anything the government does? No, I don't trust them for anything.
No. Why not?
It's too scary. No, because it's a lot of times where the government covers up things to make them look good at the end of the day, especially through the Epstein files.
Yes, I definitely trust the government.
Okay.
I think that this government's definitely one of the more trustable ones.
I feel like the government is a ton of sinful people, and it's hard to know who to put your trust in.
Do you think Americans will ever learn the truth about what happened to them one way or the other?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because those people will disappear as well.
Find that one kid who said he trusts the government and just read him the last 5 years during COVID, right?
I don't know what's going on with this. I'm very suspect of the conspiracy part of it. I think it's coincidental. I don't know. I think it's, they weren't all like in the same program or have the same knowledge. I don't get it.
It's weird.
It is
Whatever.
weird.
Not my
We'll leave
problem
it there because we're not going to figure it out tonight. Carl, good to see you. Have a good weekend.